So it's 3:05 Eastern Standard Time, and I am going to get started. So hello, everyone. My name is Liz Dunlap. I am the face and name behind PreLaw at P.A.D.org, which I just dropped in the chat. For those of you who do not already know me, I am Phi Alpha Delta's PreLaw Operations Coordinator, working at the fraternity's executive office. My office hours are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for anyone that's wondering what time zone I'm in, but I think I already said that. And I am based here in Baltimore, Maryland. Our office is currently comprised of 8 staff members who are all here to help you out and make the most of your P.A.D experience. If you need my contact information, you'll find it on this first slide here, in addition to the very last one in this presentation. Okay, so I'm just going to go over a few housekeeping items real quick. This session is going to be recorded. We will be going over a few things. Then move on to discussion. If we finish early, fine, but I'm happy to stay and chat with anyone who has questions for later. This recording is also going to be available on the PreLaw Officers resource page in case anyone would like to go back to rewatch this if they've missed today's session. If you have any questions, please feel free to virtually raise your hand, or you can put those questions in the chat and I am going to go through and answer them to the best of my ability during our Q&A portion at the end. So are there any questions beforehand before I get started? All right, then if not, I'm going to dive into our topics for today. So all right, so I want to begin today's presentation just by going over a few major pre-law deadlines, not just for the fall, but also a few major events early next spring. Yes, spring 2023. We always advise for pre-law chapters to plan as far ahead as they can. That doesn't mean that you can't start doing that now. So today's main topics we're going to review are recruitment, chapter events and programming, as well as how to effectively plan for spring without getting overwhelmed. And another big item that I want to cover is PreLaw Conference as well, since that's one of our biggest events, arguably the biggest event as a PreLaw student member. This happens annually, and it is one of the largest gatherings of PreLaw students and legal minds across the country. And so I'll go into that a little bit more specifically later on in this presentation. So, all right. So due dates, deadlines, and fees. These are some of the major deadlines for the year and a reminder of our current fee structure for new members. If you're already current officers, which I see many of you, I see a lot of familiar names, so I'm going to assume most of you that are attending today are officers. But if you've already been reported to me, then you should have already been receiving emails from our office about some of the following important dates and events that I'm about to cover. So August 23rd through the August 23rd, which is tomorrow, that's when PreLaw Conference registration is going to open. Now we have those dates officially posted as November 2nd through the 5th. And once again, that is going to be the biggest national pre-law event of the year. Each year we hold PreLaw Conference, and that's an event filled with exciting workshops, keynotes. There's a mock trial competition and a law school expo. So if you're seriously thinking about a career in the legal field, then this is the event to attend, and that is going to help you get a leg up in your legal journey. So we'll go over more information and details. You're also going to be receiving emails from our office tomorrow, for example, since we are opening registration for the conference and for mock trial team registration as well. And then we will be rolling out more details about our workshops, keynote speakers, and more. All right, the next major date to be aware of is November 8th. That is Founders Day, and also when spring 2023 semester programming is due. So Phi Alpha Delta, just a little history lesson. We were founded on November 8th, 1902. This is a special day for our P.A.D brothers and sisters, friends, partners, and sponsors to come together and give back to make an impact for the student, the school, the legal profession, and the community. So during Founders Week, we have a series of events to celebrate all of this, and it's just a really nice time for members to come together and celebrate the history of our fraternity and grow closer to one another. So the next important due date or date is September 19th through the 23rd. That is National Hazing Prevention Week. So we partner with an organization called National Hazing Prevention. And each year around September, we help to promote the organization's week-long planned activities and events that are designed around promoting awareness and best practices to prevent hazing. So this year, the organization is going to have 5 days of conversations about hazing prevention online through social media, and it's going to help empower attendees to raise awareness as well. And so you can go on their, go look up their site, and you can definitely register for some of their events. Let's see. Make sure. Sorry about that. All right, so next one, I'm going to move on to April 5th. That is our deadline to hold 2023 officer elections. So yeah, spring elections, those will also happen annually and ideally once per year, so that newly elected officers have at least 1 full year to fulfill their role and reap the benefits of being a leader within the chapter. I understand that sometimes it's not always possible to make this exact deadline. In fact, I'm also aware that sometimes not all positions can be fulfilled. And so sometimes chapters may opt to hold special elections in the fall to fill in any vacancies. That is perfectly okay. But if possible, I would aim to have your elections completed in the spring. And once newly elected officers are selected, please ensure that those new officers are reported to my email at prelaw@pad.org. Right. But yeah, we want chapters to have as much time as possible to transition to their officer roles. Newly elected officers don't actually have to take over until the transition is complete, which leads me to our next date, April 17th. That is going to be the 2023 deadline for next year's chapter officer transition process to be completed. So during that process, just a little rundown there, that's when the incoming and outgoing officers are going to work together so that new officers are oriented into their roles. I will also assist in that process as well by providing you some important information you should know about chapter operations. But items that incoming and outgoing officers should be working on together should include passing on of bank account information, social media and chapter passwords, any other materials that the chapter has, and as well as getting a jump on planning your fall 2023 programming as well. Usually during the officer transitions period, that's one of the best time periods to have to work on fall programming together. Okay, and the last important date or deadline on here will be awards. So first Monday in June of every year, and that's going to be June 5th in 2023. That's the deadline to submit pre-law awards applications. So this is your time to shine. I say we don't ask much here at the executive office, but we really do want to see your chapters and officers recognized for all of the hard work and ingenuity that you employ during your tenure. So as a member of the executive office, I can assure you that in working with your chapters, we are aware of what you're accomplishing and the events and programming that you're holding. And so we hope to see that you'll apply for more awards each year. I already know we have some chapters in attendance at this meeting today that have applied for awards for this year. And I also want to let everyone know that just in case if you missed, our previous deadline back in June this summer, we are actually still going to be accepting awards applications for the 2021 to 2022 school year until September 15th. So that will be coming up soon. But make sure that you get those in. Winners are going to be recognized at this year's PreLaw Conference, which I can provide more details about that later on in this presentation. But we know pre-laws can get pretty competitive. And so at the very least, if your chapter is recognized, then, you'll be able to bring home some bragging rights there. Just saying. All right. So at the bottom here, you'll see I have some information as well about the fee structure as it pertains to joining. So many of you probably already know this when you joined, but the PreLaw Student Members International Initiation Fee is currently set at $125. This fee is going to last you through your entire undergraduate career and only needs to be paid once when joining. If you are a pre-law student graduating and you're going to be attending law school and wish to join an active law chapter at that law school, then we have a senior transition fee. That fee is $70 and it is one time. I also want to add that if you are a pre-law student member that is transferring schools, and let's say if you go from one pre-law chapter to another, then there is no fee to transition there. Just reach out to our office, let us know, and we're happy to update your membership record to reflect where you are currently enrolled at and the chapter that you would then be a part of. Something very critical to keep in mind about fees, especially as it pertains to recruitment and talking to students about P.A.D. One of the biggest questions we get asked is if we waive the $125 pre-law student fee. And to answer that, we don't. So you are aware, P.A.D is a nonprofit. We are a 501c7 nonprofit. And those initiation fees are necessary for us to operate. That fee covers initiation materials. It covers chapter insurance, which you are covered by. It allows us to also provide free recruitment materials, event materials, free webinars and content, member benefits such as LSAT and test prep services. So I think it's important to note for recruitment purposes that a $125 fee for undergraduate membership and how member benefits tie into that cost is pretty good. And while we don't waive the fees, we do offer customizable payment plans towards the $125 international initiation fee. Adding with that, one alternative way that I've seen help future students looking to join joining your chapter is to fundraise and set aside a budget that could help assist students that are facing financial barriers. So take the time, think of what your P.A.D membership has done for you this far on your journey, what it means to you, and how you can help provide that to other students that are in need. I've seen chapters and charter efforts even coordinate to cover student join fees. So if, you can also work with your school's Office of Student Activities, as they may sometimes cover chapter financial fees, including membership fees for individual students. There's ways that, you can also help to provide that alternative funding. And I think it also speaks back to our core values as a fraternity as well. So it's just something to keep in mind as you go forward, if that is something that you would like to adopt. So with that said, it's very important to have best practices when collecting money, not just for bookkeeping purposes, but also to avoid potential problems in the future. I recommend don't ever collect cash on the international initiation fee. And if you do, please make sure those funds are separate from chapter dues and make sure that they are immediately sent to our office in addition to any new member applications, so we can make sure that students are accounted for and no one is missed. I can't tell you how many times we've run into it where students, they joined online, but gave cash, maybe wrote a check or cash to their officers, or, use Cash App or whatever to send that $125 fee to them. And that money never got passed on. So just to reiterate, make sure that, students are joining online at www.pad.org and never make students wait to join. And the last thing, because I know I've already talked a lot about fees, but the last big thing I want to discuss here as well is Cash Apps. So I understand, our office understands that it's been very popular within the last few years to use Cash Apps like Venmo or Cash App itself for chapter banking operations or transactions. However, our office cautions their usage for a couple reasons. One, oftentimes we see Cash App passwords not get passed along during spring elections and officer transitions. Sometimes that's, an innocent thing that was neglected by previous officers. And sometimes it's not so innocent. And it becomes, either way, it just becomes a mess for new officers to straighten out, to recover that information. So oftentimes it's not uncommon for new officers to suddenly be in a position where they cannot access hundreds, sometimes even thousands of dollars worth of chapter funds, and they end up having to start and fundraise from scratch, which, by the way, our office, the executive office, we do not require for chapters to report or send any important chapter password information like banking or Cash App information or even social media account information. So just keep that in mind, because if you lose access to it, there's unfortunately not much we usually can do there. The other big reason why we caution against using Cash Apps as well is earlier this year, mobile payment apps like PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, even Zelle, they have been required to report business transactions totaling more than $600 per year to the IRS. So previously, that threshold, I think, was about $20,000. But now things have changed. So if it's more than 600, this can potentially affect student organizations and fraternities. For example, there have been cases where alums of other orgs have actually had to reach out to their fraternity headquarters because the IRS came to them about a failure to report income back when that alum was a student chapter officer. So if you are a student and let's say your social security number is tied to a Venmo account, it can potentially cause problems down the line for you personally if you fail to report potentially $600+ thousands of dollars, even worth of income that was run through that account. you could essentially be on hook by the IRS for that. So some of you may have even already reached out to me about transitioning your Cash App account funds into an account through a banking institution like Bank of America or a credit union or anything. Or even one that is run through by your school. So our office can help with that process and provide to you the necessary paperwork that most institutions look for when opening a student-run chapter bank account. So just let us know when you get to that point. And also don't forget to check your school's financial policies as it concerns fraternity and student organizations. Okay. All right, you all still with me? So since we covered fees and even assisting students with their membership costs and other just best practices with finances, that transitioned us to our next section, fall recruitment. So fall is the easiest time to recruit, but don't expect it means everyone will just come to you. So remember, active recruiting is most effective. When you're recruiting, consider what got you to join P.A.D. Was it a specific program? Was it a member benefit? Was it just the idea of joining a group of people with similar goals? Don't overthink recruitment. The simplest approach is to just ask and see what people are interested in. And remember that they may also be hearing about P.A.D. for the first time. So real quick, I just want to review the five key elements of recruiting, which are listed on the side panel here. Number one, the foundation and the identity. Know who you are and what you stand for, both personally and as an organization. What do we stand for? What do we represent? This is your moment to take a look, go on our website, Google P.A.D, and, look over our fraternity policy manual or, even our guides where we have listed out our core values. So, just stuff like that, even think about your, chapter identity as well. What is your branding? Number two, the buy-in, the hook. If you want to get someone interested, how are you going to do that? Find out what that person is interested in. Develop an idea through that conversation. Using we statements, we can make it happen as well. Number three, the handshake, the connection. No pressure to actually do those things as far as the handshake is concerned. But find something or someone to help connect those dots, learn their interests, find someone that matches, build, that relationship with organization through its members. And sometimes I see that happen through really fun, recruitment events as well. Just getting to know more about people. Number four, the barrier and avoiding it. The table, the email, whatever it is, whether physical or not, get rid of that barrier, come out and talk face to face with people. If you're distant, you can always text or, still send an email or even a handwritten note. That might seem very old school, but you never know. Sometimes people might, enjoy receiving something that feels very personalized as well. And definitely, I, always recommend calling on the phone. It's always good to have like real human connection there as well. And then last point is the ask, the close. Selling doesn't equate to much without the ask at the close and ask them, would you like to join? And even then, that's no pressure. You can always take their information later and reach back out to them or other students too that may not have joined during fall, but you can always follow up with them in the spring too. So more I'd like to say about recruitment and membership. So yeah, recruiting should happen all the time, but try taking advantage of events set up by the school that you can just show up. You don't need anything flashy. Try going to freshman orientation, or if there's an organization fair, things like that. But just, be able to get out there and show people why it's worth joining your chapter. One of the biggest things that P.A.D offers is our pre-law benefits and discounts and programming, such as PreLaw Conference, and the ability for this to continue beyond undergrad and law school, if you choose to pursue that. So I would even say consider electing recruitment and marketing chairs that can work with each other and with the e-board to help strategize ways to approach students. With that said, also too, definitely don't forget about freshmen. Sometimes I see it with chapters. They really tend to focus on sophomores, juniors, and seniors, but don't forget about freshmen or non-traditional students, graduate students as well. Graduate students can actually join a pre-law chapter as long as they are enrolled and considered in good standing at your school, they can join. And don't forget about part-timers, faculty members as well. All of them, they can join P.A.D. If you forget about, these people, that also limits your recruitment options. So when you start recruitment, you should already have an idea of when your next initiation ceremony is. And I suggest setting a ceremony up within the first 6 weeks of classes starting. After that, you can hold smaller ceremonies later in the semester if you have more people join. But usually within the first 6 weeks, that's kind of like a nice sweet spot or so. And then as far as putting together your initiation ceremony, we have the pre-law chapter ritual handbook, which is on our website. And I can also drop some of these links in later. But we have, our ritual handbook that's going to detail everything you need for setting up an initiation ceremony. It has a list of what you might want to have at the ceremony, a diagram of setting things up in a physical space, and the full script. All you really need to do is just gather materials and have the officers, and by materials, I mean any decor you would like, in addition to new member materials, and have the officers show up to read their parts, though we definitely suggest a practice run through first. You may have just heard me mention new member materials, and those can be requested online and mailed in time for your ceremony. So how do spring and fall recruitment differ from each other? I'm just adding this in as a refresher here. But spring, I like to think of it as a good time to focus on anyone who didn't join in the fall and adjust your strategies from there. For fall, I see it as a time that's pretty naturally set up anyway. So you're recruiting new students, any freshmen and transfer students, and you can do that through orientation, organization fairs, etc. Like I said previously. And then I also would like to add to, we have an open membership policy. We're proud to have an open membership policy. So as long as students are considered in good standing with the school and enrolled and they're eligible. So what kinds of things can you try in the fall? Like I already mentioned, follow up with anyone who showed interest. And even if they didn't actually join, see if they want to now. Don't forget, engaging with those non-traditional students. Focus on building your connections with other organizations on campus. You can be a member of P.A.D and a member of any other non-legal fraternity. So, work with other organizations. You can also work with your school's pre-law society if they have one as well, or engage with your political science or pre-law departments, or even outside of those departments as well too, since you don't have to be on a pre-law track necessarily to join as a pre-law student. But anyway, you might be able to recruit from, even from working with other orgs. You might be able to recruit from their membership as well, or even just co-host and plan events together. And last, tailor your fall events to topics or programs that will help members prepare for finals, for upcoming fall LSAT dates, and even fun stuff, related to the holidays. So I'm going to end on a note as far as recruitment too, that if you do need any recruitment materials, those can also be requested online for free. And some of you may have already started receiving materials that our office has been mailing out. So it's a very busy time. Okay, I see I have a question. What comes with the request of new member materials? So with the new member materials, a lot of it is paper material that you can hand out. We have brochures, we have P.A.D business cards that you can give out. We also have information from our benefits partners, such as Kaplan, Access Lex, about like how finance law school, if that's what people are thinking about. And we even include information to help with operations, such as our pre-law model bylaws, which I will get into a little bit later. But yeah, we just, so we have a lot of information that you can have as you're tabling to consider. And then online through our store for purchase, we do have more decor stuff. So we even have personalized or customizable chapter banners if you would like to request that. We can provide that to you at a cost, as well as koozies or any other P.A.D branded materials or merch or items to, zhuzh up your recruitment table just a little bit. And we also do have recruitment materials, paper recruitment materials that is on our website as well virtually. And that includes not just the stuff that would come in the, some of the stuff that would come in the recruitment box, but also other items like a P.A.D branded PowerPoint template, images for social media, logos, stuff like that to also help you roll out more marketing specific stuff. So if that gives you an idea of what's included in the recruitment box. And then for new member materials for the initiation ceremony, that would be the certificates for each member that has joined and pens. If you don't receive those materials in time, though, you can improvise. And we advise buying carnations, which is actually the P.A.D flower symbol, our official flower. And you can hand those out to students and then still go through the script and everything. All right. Programming. Okay, so just some general event advice. When we're talking about recruitment, one of the biggest tools that you'll also have in your arsenal with you is your chapter's events calendar. People want to join organizations that are doing things, and it's just as simple as that, even if you're just starting out. So we went over deadlines earlier. You all know that fall programming calendars were already due back in the spring. And so hopefully your chapter worked with the previous officers to work on that and have that finished and already turned it into me. If you didn't do that yet, you should definitely take some time as a board to sit down and do it now. So we have programming requirements, which you'll see under the event categories. And we also have examples listed out in our chapter operations guide. You should use them. We can also provide past calendars from your chapter. That's part of the reason too why we collect those. So as a reminder, your calendar should be about 75% professional and academic, 10% social, 15% community service, plus fundraising events as needed. I've provided a more detailed breakdown on this slide of what that can look like, which will also include executive board meetings and chapter meetings. So this is not concrete. You don't have to do this exactly, but this would be like sort of an ideal schedule and event categories that your chapter should strive to meet. But yeah, so that's going to help keep your membership engaged overall. Some other advice I have too on events is, use event recordings on PA.org if you're having trouble setting up events for recruitment and beyond. We have a YouTube channel, and we do have recordings from previous webinars and events that we've done that you can always use for recruiting purposes, for example, and, work with other orgs to co-sponsor and share resources. As I suggested before, you can connect with local alumni or legal professionals, and our office can actually help you with that. We have a huge network, and we are always happy to help connect pre-law students to law students and alumni, or even previous speakers that we've worked with. Our sponsors and benefits partners actually can also assist you with that too. So that way, if you need speakers for an event, you have these resources at your disposal. Even think about, choosing events that fulfill multiple categories. You can double up on event categories if it hits, certain things. And another thing I'm also going to add to thinking about it is having a niche or signature event that your chapter is known for. Some chapters do annual retreats, and I know I have seen some chapters, like some based in Florida, that have submitted that event as a pre-law chapter awards application. So, if you have a major event that your chapter does and it's done really well, make sure that you're also taking good notes. If you fundraise, how much money did you make? Did you break any records or anything on your campus? Or, did you have record attendance, stuff like that? I always recommend, as you're doing events too, and as you're running through them, keep, really good notes about stuff that worked, and maybe stuff that you can improve upon later. But yeah, if anybody has any great events that their chapter has done or that they're aware of, also feel free to share that in this chat too. This is your time to also provide helpful or useful information to each other. Okay. Another thing too I wanted to add, since we're also excited to see each other in person again, maybe also think about having virtual option with your event. It's never a bad idea to consider, since this is kind of our new norm. But, since we're in this new semi-virtual environment, I do suggest be flexible, plan ahead and maybe have, virtual backup plans. Consider a mix of in-person and virtual events. Alumni panels, for example, are actually a great way to do something virtually, and that can always be recorded, and you can disseminate that to chapter membership or use it in recruitment campaigns later. And, just think of virtual options as a great way for chapters to also be more accessible to their membership, since we all have different lifestyles, different needs as well. And I know I mentioned earlier that we have a YouTube, but something to think about specifically as well for any videos that, that we produce, content that we produce that you might also want to share with your chapter members. We have a speaker series. You can host events around our speaker series and have watch parties or share these recordings in your communications or social media as a tool for new members to help get them interested. And if you are wanting to participate in other chapters events, you can do that too. On our website, we actually have a calendar where you can see what is going on nationally and internationally between our members and chapters. Okay. Whew. So, PreLaw Conference. This is my last big section to cover. You've heard me talk about this. You've heard me email this, about this So this is, as I said before, this is an annual event. It occurs each fall around November, and it's one of the largest pre-law events in the country, bringing together other pre-law members, law school admissions counselors, alumni, and professionals in the legal field for networking, workshops, keynote speakers. This year, we're excited to announce we have Justin Hansford. He's a professor of law and the executive director of the Thurgood Marshall Civil Rights Center. He's going to be our keynote this year. And we also have our highly anticipated mock trial competition, our law school expo, and more. So that was another mouthful, but your main takeaway here is that this event is a lot of fun. So speaking of this year, this is our 32nd annual PreLaw Conference, and it's going to take place November 2nd through the 5th, as I've said before, and it's going to be at the Renaissance Arlington Capitol View Hotel in Arlington, Virginia. So registration for this conference with mock trial team, that's going to open tomorrow. And this year you'll have the opportunity to attend our conference programming while also touring our nation's capital. I mean, that sounds like a pretty sweet deal. So I live in the DMV region. I love exploring DC. I love going to museums and other arts, culture, and just great food too. I love the DMV. I will always rep it. But you're totally welcome, though. In addition to our pre-law conference programming, you can set aside time to tour DC, as well as, visit some of our local law schools at institutions like American University, Georgetown, George Mason, and others. So I would start doing some research there if you haven't already. So a little bit about mock trial. This is always very highly anticipated with PreLaw Conference, but I'm so excited it's back in person this year. And this is your opportunity to, as a team, practice your courtroom and even acting skills. So I know some chapters that were registered for this ops meeting today have competed in previous years as well. So y'all know how fun and competitive it can get. Our Law Expo. Our Law Expo will also be happening, and that will allow you to meet with law school admissions representatives and partners from all around the country. For those that do attend, many admissions representatives will be offering law school application fee waivers to conference attendees, so keep that in mind. This is another just great opportunity overall for students to connect and meet with each other. It's incredibly valuable on a personal level with all the networking that happens here. This is also a great first event as a P.A.D member if you ever plan on attending like our other big organizational event, which is convention, but that would, later down in the future. Convention is a biannual event and is attended primarily by our law and alumni members. This year, we actually just had convention a few weeks ago, August 3rd through 7th, and it was in Scottsdale, Arizona. All right. So for funding for PreLaw Conference, I suggest applying for school funding, or at least start having those conversations on fundraising now, or honestly like yesterday, but now. Payment plans for PreLaw Conference registration will be available. And if you do need help with funding, let's say if you would like to go to your school and propose for any funding requests, we have a template to request funds. And I'm happy to provide that to you. So we have a sample budget proposal and a funding request letter. And then we also do have our pre-law fundraising guide if you would like any assistance or brainstorming advice on putting together any fundraising events now, so that way you can attend pre-law conference this year. Grant funding will also be available to students that apply The grant is worth $500 and can be used towards pre-law conference registration in addition to travel and hotel reimbursement for the conference. Information about this year's grant application and essay is also available on our event page. So we expect to see every active pre-law chapter well represented at PreLaw Conference. And this is why I also want to mention that actually as another added benefit, as far as funding is concerned, we are offering one free registration waiver per chapter. So even if you can only send one member, think of the incredible wealth of legal and law school information they're going to be bringing back to the chapter. So officers, make sure that you communicate to your chapter, and be sure to discuss as a board before making the decision on which student you would like to send on your behalf to the conference at least. So we definitely have options on financing for the conference this year, because we really, want as many students as possible to be able to attend. But this event's going to be incredible. And if you have any questions about the conference, you can let me know during our Q&A portion. You can also email me at prelaw@pad.org. So looking ahead, it's never too early to start thinking about spring elections. Whether you're a chapter officer or a general pre-law chapter member that has aspirations to step into chapter leadership, this portion is for you. I'm going to run through just a little refresher, or for some, this may even be new, about how to set up elections in the spring as far as getting a plan together, and how your bylaws can also be consulted to help you with that. So we recommend that sooner rather than later is a good time to establish an election plan. First things first is to advertise. Anyone who is a member in good standing can run for office. It's best practice that all chapter members receive information of what positions are open, which usually the main e-board positions would be president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary, and then any chair positions as well. But so you should provide that information on what positions are open, what the duties of each position are. And you can find position descriptions in our pre-law chapter operations guide. But yeah, when you're advertising this, also set a due date for nominations. Members can nominate themselves or other members. And as you're collecting nominations, I want to ask, I would ask that you consider asking for any candidacy statements or questionnaires. I don't suggest making this necessarily mandatory, but if you give the members the option to submit something, even if you plan to have in-person candidate speeches, but it can help. So once you have your full slate of candidates, you'll want to publish the slate and all the logistical details to the chapter. This will include when elections will be held and what format, is it virtual versus in-person or a mix of both, and when chapter members will have an option to hear or read candidates' platforms. Personally, I think it's a good idea to have these published in advance so everyone has a chance to hear, but you can set things up so candidates can speak in person before voting. You can also allow candidates to have other members speak for them in support. We actually do this for our national P.A.D elections. So here comes the critical part, the voting itself. If in person, you can do this by a hand raise, paper ballot, or a verbal vote. Just make sure you have someone recording those votes. If it's virtual, it's a good idea to set up a voting period, I would say about 48 to 72 hours window, just so everyone has the opportunity to vote electronically. And once voting is complete, publicize the results and start setting up the officer transition. Part of this is, part of that transition is publicizing the results, and that means telling me here at the executive office, your chapter president, any faculty advisors, and also, if required, your school administration or whoever that is involved with student orgs or fraternities. So make sure that you also are aware of what your school's policies are on that. So now that you know some of the technical setup of running elections, I also advise consulting our pre-law model bylaws. So that way you have this information also codified for future e-boards and chapter members to be able to refer to and know. So all pre-law chapters are expected to operate under current bylaws. If your chapter needs to update yours, please make sure that you're using our pre-law model bylaws template. And I can make that available for you once I get through all of this. But yeah, so that was a lot. Thank you for sticking with me this far. I want to wrap up my presentation by doing just a quick walkthrough of a few P.A.D resources that you'll see on my second to last slide here. Got out of order for a second, but I want to make sure that you're aware of these guides in particular, so that way it can help your chapter reach its goals. There is a lot of important things to know as a leader, and I know that it's so much to read, but pretty much these 4 guides have everything you need as far as running chapter operations. And especially for the newbies here, if you have been reported to me, you should have already received copies of some of this already. For example, the pre-law ops guide and definitely the new officers resource guide. You should definitely be familiar with that, and our model bylaws. And you can also take a look at the fundraising guide too. And all of this stuff, including other manuals, other links to requesting new member materials and recruitment materials and other stuff, and even chapter rosters. You can find that on the pre-law officers resource page at the link above. And one last thing, since we, are kind of talking about guides and policies too here, that I want to mention, this is kind of not so fun, but I do have to say it, is as far as policies for a chapter, which would, incorporate financial, social media, membership policies, that can be found in our fraternity policy manual, which is the organization's main governing document. As officers, you have a responsibility to report any incidents that occur in the course of chapter operations or at a P.A.D event. Information about that is also included in our fraternity policy manual, but you should familiarize yourself with that information in the fraternity policy manual, as well as our incident reporting process. And we do have an incident reporting form online that can be submitted anonymously for any policy violations. So I also want to add to that and I meant to say this earlier, but as it concerns events as well, we do have an insurance guide or an insurance manual, and we have policies including that as well. So if you're holding an event off campus, just know that our insurance policies, that covers you all, and that is part of your membership fees too. But just take a look at our insurance guide for best practices with holding events, because there's information on that. But yeah, all of these documents I referenced, they are on the PreLaw Officers Resource page at www.pad.org. And thank you all so much for attending today's session. I'm going to go back just to answer questions from you now. So feel free, raise your hand, or if you want to unmute yourselves or anything. And if you have to run to class or don't have time, since I know we're about to go a few minutes over an hour, you can also schedule a meeting with me one-on-one, or email me at prelaw@pad.org. To answer Shanna's question about if the recording is going to be available for future reference, yes, it is. So after this, and once it's just edited a little bit, we are going to have it available on the PreLaw Officer Resources page. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and see some of your lovely faces. And I'm also going to drop the link to our PreLaw Officer Resources page here. And everyone is also going to get an email with a link. Since you all are, there is another PreLaw Operations specific email that's on the calendar soon. So all PreLaw students will also get a link to the recording as well. Danielle, okay, so for the one free registration per chapter, that's simply the registration, not airfare or hotel fees, correct? Yes, that is just for the PreLaw Conference registration fee, as far as the one free registration is. I also suggest too that if you decide, for anyone that decides to go the route of soliciting funds from your school, and if you're using our sample budget and template letter as well, we do also have it broken out too, so that way if you want to consider include any information of what your potential travel expenses would be in addition to hotel fees, don't be shy, include that as well. Your school may also very likely have funds to be able to cover that too. And I'm also going to drop a link to our PreLaw Conference event page. Okay. And on that event page, if you scroll down a little bit where it says pricing, you'll see the different registration amounts depending on membership, as well as mock trial team registration. And there's also links where you can download our PreLaw fundraising guide to look that over, and the sample budget proposal and request letter. And as far as the PreLaw Conference grant is concerned, there is a link to that on the event page as well. And I encourage students to apply to that, because that will also cover, since it is worth $500, that can also go towards registration and travel and hotel expenses. Okay. Does anyone else have any other specific questions, anything that I may have missed, or if you need clarification on anything, this is your time. Or also, if not, if you got to run, or if you're a little tired and just want to take the rest of the day too, we can end. And again, you can email me. You can also call our office as well, and we can always schedule a meeting. I see somebody created a group meet. Love it. And yeah, feel free to, also use this as a brainstorming space or sharing anything for event ideas. Yeah, Chantal, do you have any specific type of events that you're looking to brainstorm towards? Anything, maybe community service or fundraising, socials for the chapter? Service, social, and professional events. Yeah, so so for service events, I mean, if your chapter wants to organize, like I've seen beach cleanups, working with Red Cross or anything to donate blood, or working with your local shelter or, any social justice organizations as well. That would, could fulfill service easily. And you can also do that work with your campus or anyone that can help facilitate that, or other organizations that are probably also doing community service events. For social, and you can also do stuff too virtually as well. I remember like peak 2020, we had some chapters, since pretty much everyone had to operate virtually, but they would work through maybe Goodwill or organizations like that, and sort of do like virtual drives for anything. So you can always do that. Social events too, for example, with, eventually with LSATs and everything, you may find that you might have a lot of programming geared towards study sessions or anything like that. But, maybe even in the midst of all of that, and even finals as well, when those come up, maybe have a social event that's just, a de-stress, event. I've seen like sort of, spa type of events where chapters will, provide face masks or stuff like that, or just bonding. So people can just not think about, academic work or, preparing for law school or anything like that, and can just de-stress. You could do, have, your chapter do like a yoga, like, or yoga instruction or something like that. Mental health and well-being, those types of things, or have a movie night. We encourage to, have fun as a chapter. Definitely to keep in mind our policies as well about alcohol and hazing. As pre-law students, alcohol is prohibited at events, but, still, I just, have to say that to say as far as social events, but and with professional events, that can be very easy too. If you need any speakers or professionals in the legal field, our office can help you find a local person that can come and speak to students. Lawyers, I can tell you, they love to talk. And they're always willing. Our members are always super happy to talk to pre-law students too, and impart any mentorship or professional advice. Well, I hope that this was a comprehensive meeting for you all. Thank you, everyone. If you have any questions or would like to set up any time to meet, and I can also stay a few minutes later too to and just hang out if anyone else wants to, because I got a question about that. Or Madison, if you and I just want to meet one-on-one, I can send a separate Zoom link about that if you would like to do that. But and again, this meeting was recorded. It will be available on the pre-law officers resource page, and we will be emailing all pre-law students with the recording and access to that with the link after today. So for anyone that missed it, it will be available later, in short. All right. Thank you, everybody.